Here, Miss Langtree, play something like this.
10 years ago this month, Cartoon Network launched its first miniseries. Okay, first original miniseries, Over the Garden Wall. And the format quickly became a staple on the channel, being utilized to tell tightly woven serialized stories with pre-existing shows, or get brand new concepts off the ground in short-lived packages. As binge watching and social media were cementing themselves as crucial parts of media consumption, the channel experimented with a variety of outlets like digital shorts, console and mobile games, movies, and low-quality phone recordings of Steven Universe episodes that were accidentally leaked early on demand. While there is Star Wars Clone Wars, a more recent miniseries that initially premiered on Max, this era in the 2010s feels like a response to the influx of event and limited series that were beginning to define prestige TV. Today, we'll look at this disappointingly brief renaissance and how it shaped what Cartoon Network is now.
If I told you there was a story...
Where are we?
From a forgotten place.
See anybody?
I see you.
Filled with shadows.
Something weird is going on.
And the unknown.
Yeah.
Where solving the puzzle only leads to dangers and greater discoveries. Would you be willing to take a peek? Over the Garden Wall. A 5-night mystery adventure. Beginning Monday, November 3rd at 7, 6 Central. Only from Cartoon Network.
In a fall classic that's borderline illegal to watch before September, Hap brothers Wirt and Greg traverse a mysterious forest reminiscent of pre-20th century culture and folklore, encountering pumpkin people, a burdened woodsman, and grave danger as they are guided home by the bluebird Beatrice, who is constantly making this face, merchandise included. As its 10 episodes aired in batches of 2 from Monday to Friday in November 2014, the ratings only grew stronger, amassing a total of 4.2 million views with ages 2 and up. People kept coming back, even if they had not seen this tale begin, and it was perfect for binge watching. It's no surprise that CN immediately began to adopt this weeknight strategy for premieres, starting with an Adventure Time Thanksgiving event a few weeks later. This evolved into the bomb format that was notably utilized for most of Steven Universe's run. You could probably consider them miniseries, but they weren't on the Wikipedia list I largely based this video around, so I don't. The bombs did lead to longer hiatuses, but if it worked for Over the Garden Wall, surely it could work for the rest of the network, right?
I can't wait for the next episode. Whenever that is, am I right?
Creator Patrick McHale thought that this format would allow for a higher quality product. He originally planned to tell his story over 18 chapters, but this was shortened to 10 to account for time, budget, and scheduling. The backgrounds really benefited from this decision, as they could afford to be highly detailed. Producing a limited series meant that the crew didn't have to lock in a style that could become taxing to maintain for dozens of episodes. There was less scrutiny to deliver work on time, and art director Nick Cross could afford to design many a background himself, likening it to a sprint rather than a marathon. The crew also had time to go back and fine-tune the beginning and ending to align with everything in between. That's how Chapter 1's opening was able to be filled with vignettes that vaguely foreshadow every episode, and how we narrowly missed Greg shouting the words, Mr. Beast. There were lots of upsides to telling this story in chunks rather than as one continuous movie. You can suddenly jump forwards and backwards in time without it being jarring, the finale can focus on resolving its own conflict instead of delivering a huge climax, and each segment can inhabit its own tone or genre. One can be reminiscent of 1930s comedies or The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack.
He's the butcher.
I'm the butcher.
The baker.
Yeah.
The midwife. The master and apprentice. The tailor. And I'm the tavern keeper.
Even if you want to watch this in one sitting, I think it's hard to be annoyed by the brief intros and outros. They play like old school film title cards and intermissions, adding to the vintage feel. Even surrounded by similarly lighthearted, serialized, and simply designed programs on Cartoon Network at the time, Over the Garden Wall was still able to stand out. Characters undergo clear arcs in just under 2 hours, there's plenty of moody, slow-paced moments, the score sounds displaced from time, and it's all surrounded by a major open-ended question of whether or not the central setting of the unknown is real. That alone has left fans speculating for a decade. I haven't even mentioned the finer details, such as how the whole cast sound like natural, real people. Well, except for the guy with noticeably different audio quality.
You don't need directions, Pilgrim. You follow that compass inside your heart.
You know, scratch that last point. I just remembered how Mr. Langtry's voice is a fusion between Benson and Muscle Man from regular show.
Is this what I've been paying for?
While there is a pilot, a cute new 10th anniversary stop-motion short, and comics written by Patrick McHale that I've covered before, they are all semi-canon products that don't overwrite the episodes. Every time I watch this miniseries, I am reduced to tears in its final moments because it is finite. They didn't turn this into a franchise, and it's all the better for it. For the past decade, these characters have only truly existed in these 10 episodes. For me personally, once that longing kicks in, that's when the tears start. It may be a hard truth to accept, and I may never fully accept it, but deep down I know that Over the Garden Wall would not be what it is, and it would not be as excellent as it is if it were not a miniseries. Over the Garden Wall took home the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program in 2015. But regular show storyboard artist turned supervising producer Szeles also took home the gold, earning an outstanding individual achievement in animation for his pilot Long Live the Royals, a sitcom starring a dysfunctional royal family inspired by the British TV he consumed growing up. It's a sweeter, more medieval Arrested Development, right down to having fake recaps similar to its iconic On the Next segments.
Previously on Long Live the Royals.
Huh?
What?
You gotta be
Come on!
outrageous.
Well, heck.
Kill me now.
What stood out to me weren't the characters, but rather the unfitting modern technology and punk rock music in this regal setting, designs that pop despite their earthly colors, and the dynamic shot choices. Besides a logo change and recast, virtually nothing changed when this was picked up for a 4-episode miniseries, with each spotlighting a different family member during the Yule Hare Festival, a holiday akin to Thanksgiving or Christmas, which this aired between. Besides a little continuity, that's about as much connective tissue as you get. I think the royals themselves aren't too complex, ranging from an overbearing father to a wallflower son, but they're able to be fleshed out beyond what we saw in the pilot. Their goals, fears, insecurities, and underlying love for each other is more clear. The opening scene alone does a better job introducing them and cementing the tone, where the gags can be silly non sequiturs without taking away too much emphasis from the characters.
Servants, move in closer to the table. Enhance. What are you doing at that table, Peter? Closer, over Peter's shoulder.
It appears he's completing a placemat maze puzzle.
The cast is especially great. Lots of big names from the worlds of sketch comedy, improv, and Succession. But the standout has to be Peter Serafinowicz as the royal advisor Frederick. That's Darth Maul.
May I suggest that you are all terrible people, Your Majesties?
Frederick, right again.
The background's got a slight upgrade in detail, and the colors really flourish at night, when there's light sources like phones cutting through the darkness, or this punk show having a red tint. That's the regular show influence continuing to shine through.
I can see that you can certainly take care of yourself.
I just wanted to dance.
Quiet before I have you executed!
Okay, sorry.
Regarding its use in the miniseries format, Cartoon Network's chief marketing officer said, "It's more of a development tool than a scheduling tactic. It's much easier to think, this needs to be made, let's find the right format. The budget is not the driving part of the conversation, and that freedom of thought has allowed the network to be more experimental. These are some decently funny cartoons, but thanks to its brief length, Long Live the Royals comes across as an extended pilot, stuck in limbo between development and full series. If his credits are any indication, Szeles didn't even need to quit regular show to make his own series. For an episodic show like this, it needed more than 4 episodes to reach its full potential. It would have been nice if the Royals lived for more than 4 days on the air."
Execute him! Whoa!
Actually, you'll remember we've outlawed executions, my lady.
Well then, you're fired!
No!
So, I'm going to explain your severance package to you now. Consider it severed.
What?
Something big is coming, and it's gonna change all this.
Get ready for an adventure time you can really sink your teeth into.
Ah! He's biting my hat!
Discover Marceline's vampire hunting past. But beware, some of those vamps are coming back.
Ah! Vampire!
Oh yeah, and this is happening.
I don't want to be a vampire anymore.
Oh my goodness.
The Adventure Time 4-night special event begins Monday, November 16th at 8.
Adventure Time was the first CN series to be adapted into the miniseries format, with 3 week-long 8-episode events that were packed into seasons 7, 8, and 9. Stakes has Princess Bubblegum cure Marceline of her vampirism, which accidentally unleashes 5 vampires from her past that they must track down and stake with the help of Finn and Jake. Well, sometimes Jake.
Let's stick with PB's plan and try staking her a bunch of different ways.
Island sends Finn, Jake, BMO, and the mysterious human Susan Strong across the ocean in search of human civilization, encountering mystifying creatures and advanced technology on their voyage to Finn and Susan's birthplace of Founders Island. Finally, Elements has the boys return to the land of Oo to find it and its citizens transformed by powerful elemental magics, split into quadrants ruled by candy, ice, slime, and fire.
Oh my... But...
Getting a chance to tell long-form stories that put classic characters at the forefront and explore their lore reignited my interest in Adventure Time. As someone who watched 90% of the series as it aired, this was the first time it was ever released in a bingeable format, with the latter 2 miniseries dropping early on iTunes in their entirety. Islands even came with all of its animatics too. I really wish it was more commonplace to release these. Each features a goal that drives about half of these 8-episode batches, alongside segments devoted to setups, payoffs, and flashbacks. Our boys gotta defeat all the loose vampires whose deaths are shown slightly off screen, explore an assortment of islands, or visit the 4 elemental worlds to retrieve the jewels of their rulers. Having these loose formulas leaves room for standalone stories that are often highlights from these last few seasons, like an exploration of how technology can become a necessary evil in a society that's become reliant on it in imaginary resources, the adorable yet tragic backstory of Finn's parents in Min and Marty, and Finn and Jake's chilled out brotherly therapy session in Cloudy.
I think what's bugging me is...
The haircut therapy is working!
I got the most satisfaction out of how these miniseries challenge the likes of Marceline and Finn. They grapple with possibly accepting a life without their vampire powers, where they can grow old, or face ideological differences about whether fear should be a factor in one's life when reuniting with the rest of your species. It's hard to recommend watching these on their own, as they are littered with references and resolutions to episodes that precede them.
I've been holding on to the remnants of your cranial implant since you kidnapped Finn and almost killed Jake. You remember that?
That being said, thanks to the longer runtimes, it was hard to feel disappointed by the answers we were given to questions fans had been asking since day 1, about why is Marceline the only vampire new, or why Finn is an orphan. These felt like rewards for sticking with the show for so long, complete with custom credits, buttery smooth new intros animated by Science Saru, and matching title cards. I do think this trio gets progressively worse, but not noticeably worse. Islands has 2 early episodes that are fine, just comparatively lighter and less interesting, but after part 3, you get banger after banger, emotional gut punch after emotional gut punch. Elements is a little more scattershot. I love how many obscure characters get involved, but it shifts gears midway through. Finn's ultimate goal of saving Jake, as well as Lumpy Space Princess, the secret protagonist of the miniseries, don't get introduced until part 5. The dog is sidelined along with Ice King and Betty, culminating in an unfocused climax. Things like Princess Bubblegum turning everyone in Oo into candy suddenly happen just to add a ticking clock before the conclusion. Additionally, the first 2 miniseries receive comic tie-ins, and are connected by some fun Easter eggs, like the final chapters having parallel titles. Even though there's only 1 episode between Islands and Elements, the latter feels like an afterthought, being not quite as grand or important to the lore. However, Elements did successfully convert me into a big LSP fan. Tons of excellent interactions here.
Do you do squats?
Honestly, I've barely touched Classic Adventure Time since it ended, but coming back to some of my very first review topics reminded me of how much I love covering it on this channel. I've always wanted to do a video on the comics that are now being reprinted or revisit Season 6. So let me know how you'd like to see me discuss it again, and maybe it'll be one of the 4 videos I release next year.
Huh? Yeah? Yeah.
There's a big storm brewing over Everdale.
Don't go outside!
Big enough to turn neighbor against neighbor.
Calm down, you savages!
Badger against boy. And Jeff against Jeff. But one kid stands up to save the day his way.
How about we all stop bickering and have the best sleepover ever?
Don't miss the Clarence Stormy Sleepover special event. Monday, June 5th at 4. And catch a sneak peek on the Cartoon Network app.
I love Clarence. Clarence is up there with Uncle Grandpa as a defining series from this era of Cartoon Network that I enjoyed but didn't keep up with. Season 3 had the show's only venture into multi-part storytelling with the Stormy Sleepover miniseries. 6 episodes that all dropped on one night, centering around a storm that hits the town of Aberdale, causing a power outage.
Mom, can I come home?
Each segment brings a different tone to the table by spotlighting an unlikely pair or a grouping of characters, mostly the supporting cast, that Clarence attempts to invite to a sleepover, like Bully Belson and detention monitor Mr. Reese playing good cop bad cop, or Clarence's laid-back parents struggling to look after the hyper-organized Jeff. Big fan of the drawings in that one.
Pretty good, huh?
More and more, the isolated perspectives start to overlap and build up the stakes. I like the through line of the townspeople being disorganized in a state of emergency due to the absence of safety monitor Miss Baker. She's planning on skipping town and moving to California, not believing she's made a difference within the city, despite being the glue that keeps it together. This whole arc connects to a joke in season 1 that never left my mind, so I was happy to see it followed up.
I was this close to moving to California.
It's so cool in California. Miss Baker!
Eventually, all of Aberdale is locked in the school gymnasium, which is in danger of being flooded. Fortunately, there is a solution.
That's it! If we could make some sort of wall together, we could keep out the water and stop the gym from flooding.
That's right, they were talking about building a wall when this aired in 2017, something no one else on TV was doing at the time. It's another way these episodes feel special. Clarence didn't often change up its intro, which differs from episode to episode as the storm ramps up, or include recaps. They're very brief and presented by Clarence himself, quickly devolving into unrelated nonsense. They fit him perfectly.
Oh, and Sumo had a little badger friend. I think it was a badger. Anyway, this guy got real mad and it took Sumo's new badger friend away, and that's when Sumo's family got serious.
Stormy Sleepover makes me wish Adventure Time wasn't the only established CN original to experiment with this format, surpassing similarly comedic fare like Long Live the Royals by being satisfyingly planned out from start to finish, cementing this as a standout part of Clarence's 3-season run. Or not. Maybe it became terrible after I stopped watching.
Just go away. I'm in here. Someone's using a bathroom.
Tired of regular fruits and veggies?
Hi. Hello.
Well, check these guys out.
Get ready.
Apple and Onion are coming to Cartoon Network.
Look, we're famous. We're going to become the MFP. Most fun person.
They're two best friends.
Nice.
Living in the big city.
This city's wicked. Yeah.
They're pretty much
the perfect team. Yes, we are the perfect team.
New Apple and Onion, coming Saturday morning, November 2nd at 9:30, or watch now on the Cartoon Network app.
Apple and Onion is a part of this video on a technicality. Season 1 consists of 40 segments, but the first 10 were ordered separately as a miniseries in 2017, and premiered weekly between February and March of 2018. Beyond some cohesive bookends, there is no theme or event stringing these episodes together, but it's in this show's nature to not be too flashy. Apple and Onion flew under my radar when it premiered, surrounded by controversial reboots and blossoming originals on the channel. The characters and design sensibilities aren't too complex, but there's a charm to their simplicity. The main duo are naive to a fault, but they care deeply about everyone around them, and never stop spreading their joy to others.
Yeah.
It's a very positive show, but not free of conflict. The pair's landlord, Falafel, isn't the grouch you'd expect, just frustrated and lonely, as he's an immigrant isolated from his family, lacking someone he can depend on. Creator George Gendi moved from London to California after his pilot got greenlit, so I feel like he may have been drawing from his own experiences. You know, Onion goes to work at this unusual building in the first episode, and it looks kind of familiar. Oh yeah, it's that abandoned building that they don't make cartoons in now.
It must be hard to be alone.
It is.
Visually, this is not where you go for wild expressions or a crazy level of detail, but it's subdued in a calculated way. Sometimes it's funnier to only design one cat and constantly recycle that asset, or have the characters stare at you blankly as their faces fill the entire screen. Sometimes the stupidest thing is the funniest thing.
What shall we do now?
Apple and Onion did contribute to the narrative that the network started to skew younger in the late 2010s. I'll cover a notable exception later, but it makes up for that by being weird. Really, really weird.
Please, just start driving. But I just said the tires need pumping up. But I got sprinkles!
Like Long Live the Royals, you can basically watch these in any order, but it does kick off with something of an origin story for the produce, where they simultaneously move to the big city, don their iconic footwear, and move in together. Throughout the 10 segments, they make friends, get a recurring job, and have countless musical interludes. And when I say countless, I mean 19.
Let's go think about it in
pizzas.
Die.
The 10th episode, Block Party, doesn't have a sense of finality, but it kinda comes full circle by having Apple and Onion actually write a song for the community they've garnered. A cohesive way to end what I thought was a fun appetizer, hold for laughs. It successfully opened the door for 66 more adventures and made me go,
Aww. Yeah.
Across the great river and through the twisting woods of mystery, you shall find the unsolvable puzzle door.
We're not stopping for anything.
Tell me, kitten, do you want to get off this train?
Infinity Train is not a miniseries, but it was meant to be one. The premise of a train with an endless number of cars that each contain unique pocket universes has the potential to literally go on forever. However, the train's in-universe purpose is to help its passengers work through their problems, represented by a green glowing number on their hand intended to go down as they make personal progress. Creator Owen Dennis wanted the journey of 13-year-old protagonist Tulip to have a definitive ending, so he envisioned her story as a 10-episode miniseries, using the exact structure of Over the Garden Wall as a successful comparison to help sell the idea. Cartoon Network agreed this was the way to go, which is why they ordered 20 episodes.
Why won't you change?
Fortunately, while plotting this first season, or book, titled The Perennial Child, the writers developed additional lore for the train that now had an opportunity to be explored. Infinity Train became an anthology structured around the miniseries format, adopting a different tone and main character for each book, to ease viewers into accepting a version of the show without Tulip. After 3 years of expectations set by the wait between pilot and premiere, Book 2, Cracked Reflection, follows her mirror image, Mirror Tulip, or MT. She's a recently freed denizen of the Chrome Car, who seeks to be treated as a passenger instead of a creation of the train, rejecting the name and identity she was born with. She wants to leave the train but can't do so because denizens aren't allowed to have numbers, as passengers can only obtain their exits when the digit on their hand reaches 0. It's a fascinating way to do an all but confirmed trans allegory, and it's without a doubt my favorite part of this series.
I am a person! I deserve a number!
We're also exposed to a darker side of the train, witnessing the horrific process of how passengers are programmed by creating physical tapes of their memories and introducing the Apex, a cult of treacherous children bent on raising their numbers as high as possible, seeing all denizens as being beneath them.
She's not bad, she's just not like us.
The leaders of the Apex, Grace and Simon, star in Book 3, Call to the Conductor, the first to be released on Max. They worship a villain who Tulip stopped during her time on the train. So now there's even more consequences for those early episodes, on top of occasionally returning locations and characters. Now they're playing with denizens having families or long histories, tapes being used as a form of torture, and blurring the line between denizens and passengers to test the deeply backwards ideologies of Grace and Simon. It's easily the best book that builds on what came before it. And also Book 4 exists.
Why did you flirt with the cat?
I don't know, man. She was kind of hot.
Book 4, Duet, does have a lot to love. It's about two wannabe Asian Canadian musicians and is set in the 1980s, so they name drop Yellow Magic Orchestra, play a stylophone, and mock mid-century food. I love when someone's historical hyperfixation can be spread through a multi-million-dollar project.
Chicken liver anchovy toast? Wax beans O'Brien? Tomato frost? Ugh. It's American.
We see what happens when Ryan and Ming Yi have their fates entwined on board, meet a sentient car, and see the fallout of a clash between the wants of a passenger and the needs of the train. It works fine, but instead of a shockingly bleak moment or a frank discussion of a mature subject, there's a quickly resolved misunderstanding, a conflict that spins its wheels, and a much more interesting narrative regarding the train's history happening in the background. That seemingly would have been the crux of Book 5. It was set to be produced as a movie starring Book 1 antagonist Amelia. The plan was to produce 8 seasons, as Infinity is just 8 on its side. Yippee! However, CN passed on this Amelia-centric project, citing the lack of a child entry point. Book 4 was just meant to be a breather between 2 intense storylines, but it's now the finale. The Warner Bros. Discovery merger brought in new executives that led to its cancellation and later deletion from Max in 2022. It can no longer be streamed or purchased beyond the DVDs for books 1 and 2, which I recommend. They contain some very good commentary tracks.
Hi, my name is Owen Dennis, I'm the creator of Fame Train. Let's kill a dog!
I've heard so many fans clamor for Over the Garden Wall to continue as an anthology, where we'd ideally see others traverse and learn about the unknown, but that runs the risk of being canned before its story is properly finished. I adore Infinity Train, like Book 3 alone is probably the single best thing we're looking at today, but all things considered, it is brought down by ironically being an incomplete miniseries. Its very last line is this.
We're working on it.
Okay, now I feel obligated to rank these, so here you go. Towards the end of Adventure Time's production, the crew pitched ideas for miniseries starring the likes of Bimo and Marceline that eventually found a home on Max as 44-minute specials, branded as Distant Lands. The next project in the franchise, Fiona and Cake, would also take after Stakes, Islands, and Elements, with how each chapter tends to present a standalone story. This time, the main gimmick is alternate universes inspired by past adventures, including one that sees the return of the Vampire King, the main antagonist of Stakes. Please pretend like I remembered to mention him when covering Stakes.
You're kinda hot, but you have chicken feet.
Unfortunately, creating TV that lasts only 10 episodes is no longer a novelty, thanks to streaming services becoming a dominant force in the industry and cancellations being rampant. Nowadays, you're more likely to see an unresolved cliffhanger than a tidy ending. You'll get series that just happen to be many. Primal, Unicorn Warriors Eternal, and now Invincible Fight Girl are all CN Studios projects that only exist through 10-episode chunks, and none of these have premiered on CN itself. The channel devolving into nothing but reruns and acquired or IP-based programming is already disappointing, on top of Warner Bros. Animation practically absorbing all of its production teams and only having revivals in the works. There's already so much to be disappointed about. However, I feel that the current WB regime has also ignored what was and could be a great format for telling short but sweet original stories, even if doing anything original is still considered a risk. You can even use it to push the storytelling of current properties or test the waters for something bigger. To earnestly use a phrase that's almost never meant to be taken at face value, I hope Cartoon Network remembers that good things can still come in small packages.
Well, that's enough. Yeah!